we can complain about is just that we were a little bit too slow.
You find yourself in a situation where this is all the pace we have.
We did way better than we expected this weekend.
Isack was out there overtaking people in places where you'd never expect it in this Barcelona circuit.
P5, P6 for us, and both cars within a tenth of P3.
I don't think the atmosphere at the circuit dropped once. It's been absolutely amazing all week.
Welcome back to the Talking Ball podcast, powered by Ava Trade. My name is Tommo. His name is Calum, on location in a pretty nice looking hotel room. How are you, Cal?
Mate, I'm really good. This hotel is incredibly average, but it's absolutely fine. I've had a great week here in Barcelona. Ready to get into it, mate.
And most importantly, have you checked out the Sagrada Familia, which has been finally completed after like 144 years or something ridiculous?
That is my plan as soon as we've done with this. So I haven't had time this week, but as soon as we've done this and talked about the race weekend, that is exactly where I'm headed.
Good, love it. Look, obviously we know that Barcelona is a bit of a home away from home for pretty much every single Formula One team. We know you've trodden this path many a time and you're back again this year, Cal. What can you give us in terms of insight on the ground? I'm thinking temperatures, it looked pretty toasty. And in terms of, I guess, predictability this weekend, because the three-stop was certainly talked about being viable and we did see that work in the race. So, yeah, what is your overall assessment?
I mean, I absolutely enjoyed it. I guess you'd describe this weekend as a race of attrition. It was who can last the longest on a set of tyres. Like the heat was absolutely, like, you couldn't get away from it. There was points where I was stood out in the pit lane reporting and my feet felt like they were on fire. You know, track temps above 50 degrees. Yeah, it was just all about hanging it out on the tyres. And I think, you know, that's why the three-stop came into play.
And when the heat is so extreme, are you dealing almost in a bit of unknown, right? Because I guess you understand a temperature window that's typical. You know, you get warm tracks, you get cooler tracks, but when it's really operating at that extreme, is it a lot harder for the team to predict accurately what's going to happen to the tyres?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, look, interestingly, Max was one of the only cars to even run the hard tyre on Friday, and I asked Laurent about this on the grid, and he didn't want to give it too much away, but he said at least we have that information of how the hard tyre performs. I think there were a lot of unknowns. You know, we come to Barcelona so often, so we've got loads of data from this circuit, but I can't ever remember being here when it's been this hot. So yeah, I think there was a lot of new ground for teams, a lot of things to sort of learn in the race. That's been the story of the weekend. It's just been the inescapable heat.
We had an idea coming into this weekend. This wasn't going to be a track that necessarily played to our strengths, but actually, all in all, I mean, quali, I've got to say, is a bit of a success. I mean, P5, P6 for us, and both cars within a tenth of P3. Like, I think Saturday we overachieved, really.
On the one hand, I will say I think that red flag kind of helped us out. You know, Max already had a banker in there, and it meant that all the other drivers that went out after him didn't have that banker. So, you know, there's only so much you want to push it towards the limit, and we saw that in, Q3 with Charles Leclerc. It was a good weekend all in all. You know, we'll come home and we'll take those points. I would have said that with quali, if you'd gone into the garage on Friday morning or, Friday after FP1 and said, oh, look, you're going to qualify 5 and 6, they would have signed that deal immediately anyway. So, there were some things that went our way. We weren't on the pace that we want to be on. But all in all, coming out with a solid haul of points.
And I think, as well, you say that, obviously, yes, the red flag in a way, but Max said, post-quali as well, it kind of did disrupt his flow a little bit. So you never know if there was a little bit more on the table. The thing is, you ask any of those drivers from P3 down to P7, I think Piastri was close to a 10th as well. They all probably could have found a 10th somewhere. So it's one of them where on the day, and also we know at the Circuit de Barcelona-Catalunya, such a long run into turn one. Pole position isn't necessarily, although we kind of saw it work on Sunday, all it's kind of cracked up to be, right? You can get away with not being on pole and still lead out of turn one.
Yeah, I mean, like Lewis would have been hoping today for, a better start in that Ferrari and then, or if not, get a decent run on George down into turn one. Neither of those really came true, like the Mercedes starts were good. Everybody got a good run into turn one, but George did a great job of holding on to P1 coming out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, we've got some voiceovers from both of our drivers, but before we get to that, Cal, credit where credit's due, seeing Lewis on the top step by the end of the race, That was a real feel-good moment. Like, we're all motorsport fans here. He's been an incredible competitor over the years, as Lewis, doing it for as long as he's done since, 2007. That was a good vibe to win. And, you know, sometimes, I mean, look, this championship could be heating up and Kimi not scoring a single point, Lewis getting the full 25. Like, that was fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you know what? One of the things that I really liked about it was, like, up and down the pit lane in every garage, there was applause for Lewis's win. Like, I feel like the whole paddock truly appreciated how great it was for him to get his first, like, proper Grand Prix win in a Ferrari at the same circuit that Michael Schumacher got his first Ferrari win. So, like, it was like the stars aligned for him today, and he drove a great race. He was incredibly fast.
So, yes, let's get a quick word from our two drivers, Isack Hadjar and Max Verstappen, their thoughts on how the Spanish Grand Prix panned out.
Yeah, honestly, a pretty lonely race for me. Yeah, that's sometimes the case. I think the whole weekend, of course, we have been probably a little bit behind the guys that basically finished in front of me. But as a team, I think we still did the right strategy. We had the right tires. So there's not so much that, you know, we can complain about. It's just that we were a little bit too slow. I think on every compound we were lacking a little bit, compared to the guys ahead.
Obviously not the most perfect start, but I think I counted 8 overtakes in the race.
Yeah, I mean, we just need to fix this start, and then I think we could have brought the fight to the probably Oscar. That would have been a good fight with him regarding the pace we had. So it's a bit of a shame, but anyway, I think we did way better than we expected this weekend, considering the track layout, the conditions. So to be fair, that was kind of damage limitation, and Red Bull Ring, we expect to have a stronger car on a better track for us. We fixed the start, and then we'll be back on the podium.
Obviously, Isack wasn't happy with his start, and it does feel like where he got back to, he said he felt like he had potentially a fight with Oscar that he lost out on. But all in all, said it himself, damage limitation. He can be satisfied with the weekend, even though the starts, they seem to be tripping people up still. It's still tricky to get these cars off the line. It is what it is, but he can take it.
Yeah, and I think, from our perspective as fans getting to watch it, it provided us with some great overtakes, Isack was out there overtaking people in places where you'd never expect it in this Barcelona circuit. So, yeah, like I said, these are something for us to work on, is the starts. Of course, they've not been great for a lot of the year, but it did provide us with some amazing entertainment, and Isack drove a great race from there on out.
Felt like he was having fun, as much as it must have been anything but fun watching yourself get swamped going into turn one. Like, at least he had the car underneath him that he could really push and be aggressive, because Spain's one of those tracks, isn't it? You feel like, turn one it seems to be the only real opportunity, but then he was getting those moves done in turn 3, that traction around the outside. Again, you don't typically see loads of moves there. So again, I think it's another good, within half a tenth of Max in qualifying. I think Isack can come away from this weekend, kind of maximise the amount of points realistically he was going to be able to achieve, and move Austria next race up, which hopefully, he said it himself, they expect it to be stronger performance-wise. I've been very satisfied with how Isack started the season, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think so. And look, we know from him that he's his harshest critic, right? I'm with you. I think that, especially from today's perspective, he went out there and did absolutely everything he could from the position he found himself in after the start. The team will have gathered a load of data at a track that's quite important to gather that data. There's a reason that we test in Barcelona, is because it provides you with a lot of the things that you want to know about your car. So yeah, all in all, a great Sunday from Isack, and a great week all in all.
As for Max, pretty lonely race for him. He said it himself, and the team made sure he was on the right tyres at the right time, which is all you can really do. Of course, the late safety car, VSC should I say, for Alonso pulling up, obviously potentially helped Hamilton win the race. Maybe he still had the pace to do it on merit, but you can only control the controllables, and it felt like from Max's side of the garage, with the package we had underneath us, both driver and team pretty much maximised what we could have done this weekend.
Yeah, totally agree. Again, like Max said, you find yourself in a situation where this is all the pace we have, but, he brought home the maximum amount of points that he could have in this race. So, yeah, absolutely fine. And like I said, we'll get it packed up tonight and get moving on to Austria.
Also, again, before that VSC, Max was running ahead of Charles, ahead of Oscar. Obviously, Charles DNF'd, but I would argue, Ferrari and McLaren did have the more competitive package relative to us this weekend, yet Max was able to get ahead and would have maintained that advantage to the end anyway. So again, let's briefly talk about Austria. Red Bull Ring is, of course, our home venue. Typically, we run pretty good around there. Is that just me being a victim of overly positive thinking? That seems to be a pretty happy hunting ground for us typically, right, Cal?
I think so. I think it's a track we've had plenty of success at. We've got plenty of data from our cars there over the years. We know how to get around there. It's got the combination of some really high speed straights followed by some slower, like almost hairpin corners. I think that we'll expect to be more competitive in Austria than we were here in Barcelona.
Absolutely. Now, of course, we also have to touch on, because we are a power unit manufacturer now as well, all 4 Red Bull Ford powertrain cars in the points. Of course, Liam and Arvid benefiting from Kimi and Charles' stoppages. But again, like you said it exactly at the start, Cal, right? Race of attrition. You have to get to the end, otherwise you're scoring nada. And as much as, Monaco, from a reliability point of view, wasn't our best weekend, let's be real. We've come to Spain, super high temperatures. It's very demanding on the power unit, as much as, you're likely to introduce a new engine for this race. As we saw, a lot of cars did not finish the race, but all 4 RBPT cars did.
Yeah, all 4 finished the race, and on top of that, 3 of them, were sat in the top 10 of the grid. Like Arvid just missed out on Q3, he had a bit of a power deployment issue on the start of his final lap, but that's 3 Red Bull Ford powertrains in the top 10 to start the race. And I think if you'd gone back over to the factory at the end of last year and told you, by this point in the season, you'd have already 1 podium in the bag. And then at the following race, you'd go and put 3 of the cars into Q3. I think that they would have been very, very happy with that. They've done an incredible job. You've
had that real on the ground insight, haven't you, Cal, over the last kind of, 4 or 5 years since that powertrain, it was just a space, an empty space in the Milton Keynes lot, right? And to see it turn into what it is, it must be, must feel a lot of pride there.
I remember looking at it as a gravel car park with a load of sort of shipping containers and porter cabins, So to watch the facility grow in itself was amazing. But actually, the job they've done to come here, take on 4 massive car manufacturers, and this is where we're at in the very first season, the first half of the first season. I don't really think you can ask for much more than that.
Control of our own destiny. So, the bad days, you learn a lot and we can actually action those learnings. And the good days, we can celebrate them. So, happy days. Also, another individual who had a very, very good weekend representing Red Bull was Nikola Solov. I want to give him a shout out for sure. P3 in the F2 sprint race, then P2 on track in the feature race, but got caught by it's so marginal. I don't know if you've seen it, Cal. It's super marginal, and he's dropped to P4 with a 5-second penalty. But great weekend from Nikola.
Oh, mate, absolutely. And it's always great as well. One of the things I love is when our F2 and our F3 and our F1 Academy drivers get a great result and finish on the podium. It's so great to see people from the garage, from the F1 team, go out and be there at the end of the podium and things like that. It's always wonderful.
Absolutely. And of course, he's fighting with Gabriele Mini, like they are P1, P2, Nikola P2 in the Drivers' Championship. We want to see those scraps, and F2 is giving it this year, and Solov has been just consistently up there. So obviously, look, it's a long season, long way to go, but so far so good for Nikola and the next generation potentially coming through. It's always good to see. Like, something I love about Barcelona is that you see the F2, you see the F3, it really does embrace, and I know, drivers are a bit sick of it, certainly team personnel are a bit sick of it because you're there every single year, but it does kind of hold something special. In a fan's mind, it's so synonymous with motorsport, I'd say.
Yeah, absolutely that. And obviously it didn't really pan out well for our 2 Spanish drivers on the grid. Fernando obviously stopping. Carlos Sainz has had a really difficult weekend as well. But actually, I don't think the atmosphere at the circuit dropped once. It's been absolutely amazing all week.
Are you kind of mixed emotions about it not being on the calendar next year and moving to an alternate Grand Prix, Cal? How does that sit with you?
I mean, It's a bit of a difficult one. I've spent so much time here, and I know we will be coming back here eventually, that I probably won't miss it next year. And I'm always for changing the calendar, doing new stuff. I'm very, very excited for our next race here in Spain, in Madrid. I have to say that. So yeah, it's one of those things. I think Barcelona has at times provided some incredible racing. As you said, it's a staple. It represents, Formula One so well, and so we're so comfortable with it. But I'm all for seeing new things.
Portugal and Turkey are superb tracks in their own right, so it'll be great to go there next season. Look, I think, Cal, we've got a good chunk of the way into the season. We're in the middle of the European leg now. I think that, where we started the year, we've definitely moved forward relatively. And again, we've got 2 cars running this Red Bull 4 powertrain as well, which has given us plenty of data to go back and analyse and improve and work on. And we're seeing reliability struggles across the grid, which, look, as long as they don't affect Red Bull, happy days. As a fan, I think unreliability is a good thing for motorsport. I almost think the last regulations were a bit too bulletproof. You had all 20 cars finishing a bit too often. But I think confidence that we can do it ourselves as well from a power unit point of view, and the chassis is going to get there. And I just feel like we're moving in the right direction, and that's not just me being faux positive because this is talkable. Like, genuinely, I feel like we are moving in the right direction,
mate. And that's literally all you can ask for. Well, interestingly, I was watching an interview with Mattia Binotto, right, talking about Audi, and they were asking him about the Duo, the additional development and upgrade opportunities that are coming up. And I know that a lot of that's still being debated behind the scenes. But oddly, Mattia was asked if that he would expect that these opportunities will enable them to sort of make progress more quickly. And he was really pessimistic about it. And he spoke about them not really expecting to make a real impact until around 2030, right? So when you think of a major manufacturer saying things like that, and then you think of the progress that we've made in 4 years, you have to kind of say how blessed we are to be in this position so early on.
It is a huge credit, again, to the team to have been judged to have created the best internal combustion. F1, there's so many different variables. It's really difficult, isn't it, Cal, to kind of disseminate what is actually leading to performance, because everything changes from the controllables to the uncontrollables to actually narrow down. There's no silver bullets in F1, is essentially what I'm trying to say. And whether that's the ice or anything else, it has to all come together as a package. And driver, machine, track, conditions, strategy, all of that needs to work in harmony. And that's where, ultimately whoever wins this championship this year will deserve it, and we'll go again next year, whatever happens, like we always do.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and I think what's actually making this season quite interesting is that at the moment, I don't really get the impression that everyone's got it right. And I think that's going to make the season really exciting. Ferrari have clearly found something. Certainly Lewis has found something because he was very, very fast. But there doesn't seem like one outfit that you can look at and say everything they're doing is working. Now, for us, I think that should play into our hands as the season goes on. But I think it's going to make for an exciting championship towards the end, because if this continues in this vein, I can see Ferrari snatching more points off Mercedes. I can see McLaren grabbing the odd win here and there. And that could quite well work out for us, where we can jump in at points and we can pick up the pieces, and maybe we can do the same.
Yeah, literally, you go through all of the established kind of top 4 teams, right? Of course, yeah, Mercedes, they've had their cars, George and Kimi both just stopping out of nowhere. McLaren had their double DNS in China, and Lando in particular has been, had loads of woes reliability-wise. Of course, Charles not finishing this race as well. Our struggles in Monaco. It is a proper race. It's proper, this is proper motorsport where things don't always work. F1's got so used to being it's the prime, and everyone's finishing everywhere super. But sometimes things just break, and when you're trying to push the envelope, these things are going to happen, aren't they?
Absolutely, and that's it. If things aren't breaking, then you aren't pushing hard enough.
You were hot there, but the pit crews in their full overalls, that must have been awful.
No, honestly, I thought about it when we were doing our sort of pre-grid show, and I was stood outside the garage in the pit lane. As I said, my feet felt like they were on fire. And the one thing that I thought of is how much this is going to take out of the crews. Get your suits on. By the time you do your first pit stop, you've probably had a race suit on in that heat for nearly 2 hours. Right? Their physical training and all of that, it really gets put on show in races like this.
Were you getting any stick from your old colleagues, Cal? You in your nice shirt with your microphone and they're sweating it in.
Do you know what? It's the right kind of stick, right? I tell you what, and we haven't really spoken about this. Like, one of my biggest worries when I took on this new role was feeling sort of ostracized from my colleagues. And actually, one of the things that's made this job so great is how amazing they've all been about it. I walk in the garage, they want to know how it's going. We spent some time in there doing some filming this morning. They all, happy to participate and help and be involved. They've been absolutely amazing.
Love it. Look, I think that kind of goes to show F1 is one big family just within the teams, but also we can, celebrate and acknowledge when Lewis gets his win, because this is a travelling circus, everyone going together for, as many years as you were, travelling with the team, you're going to build relationships with people from other teams and all that. And we're all ultimately, there's been many a time where, cars down the pit lane have caught fire and everyone else is like chopping in to like help out, because ultimately, we're all one big family, right?
We are, mate. We're all in the same boat. Everybody in that garage and everybody up and down the paddock, they're all spending all these days away from their families. They're putting in ridiculous hours. Like, we're lucky now, Formula One, your curfew sort of limits you to 12-hour days in the week. But the exception to that is Sunday night. For the crew still packing up right now, this is going to be a 16-hour day. And, when you're among everyone else in the paddock from other teams that is going through exactly the same thing as you are, you sort of relate to them and you're going to get on with them to a certain extent. Like, one of the old things that one of my first ever tutors taught me was, he said, there's no friends in motorsport. And I got the sentiment, but I couldn't tell you that is the biggest lie. I've made some of my oldest friends in this paddock.
Love that, mate. And of course, look, going into Austria, we've got a week off as well. Does that make pack up less frantic, or is it still a pretty full-on wrap-up today?
No, pack up sort of gets done at the fastest speed you can safely get it done, right? Everybody, like I said, it's been super hot. Everybody in that garage cannot wait to get everything packed into the trucks, get back to their hotel rooms and try and have the nice evening. Nice.
And yeah, we do it all again next time out in Austria. So, Cal, pleasure as ever. Thank you all for listening, watching, wherever you are in the world. Don't forget to interact, like, comment, subscribe, all of that good stuff to the Talking Ball podcast, powered as always by Ava Trade. We'll see you next time for our home Grand Prix in the mountains of Spielberg. Beautiful place to go racing. Can't wait. See you then.